He has a wealth of information. He can talk about many, many subjects. He did graduate from seminary. I thought I had it down here. Back there a ways, what has been 15, 20 years ago, something like that.
Something like that.
Something in that area. In 1945, he got his interest peaked in the UFO field, in the UFO phenomena. And since that time, he has had some very unusual experiences, which I think you will be interested in hearing. He also has some slides here tonight amongst his collection of many. He also has many tapes, and they are available. I guess you brought them with you. Do you have a table?
We're sharing the book table on the left, Metaphysical Bookstore.
Oh, they're close. They're by the metaphysical book, by the bookstore table. But he has a number of tapes on many subjects that he has put together over the years. So he's had 45 years of research into this field, and he knows a lot of things that we ought to know, and we want to give him his full length of time, even though we're started 7 minutes late. And I'm not going to say any more, because he will say enough or say it all. So welcome Dr. Frank Stranges of Van Nuys, California. Please.
Thank you very much.
People can move up if you see empty seats, if you wish.
Everybody happy, say amen.
Amen.
I feel sorry for the rest of you. You better see me for special prayer later. Our friend host tonight forgot to mention that I was a pastor of a church in Van Nuys and the head of our theological seminary, but we won't go into too much of that tonight because I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
Why not?
Why not? All right, I will. These are several questions that I generally ask every audience, regardless of where we speak. And years ago, I used to make a special report for the President of the United States, but I found out they didn't pay any attention to it. So instead, I just kept the information in our own files. And with your permission, I'd like to ask you several questions. How many of you, think carefully now before you answer, how many of you have ever seen a UFO? Let's see your hand. Uh-oh. All right. How many of you have never seen a UFO, unidentified flying object? And you've done it again, just like you do in every audience I've ever addressed. Some of you still haven't raised your hands. How many of you don't give a hoot whether you see them or not? Okay, all right. Some of you still haven't moved. How many of you would like to see some? Aha, I knew I'd get you to move. You'd like to see something. All right, we'll see what we can arrange. UFOs is a very controversial subject today, and it must be treated with great care. In my many years of research and investigation, we have run from the ridiculous to the sublime. Now, I'm going to take you on a quick journey through my book, Saucerama, tonight, which is available at that left-hand corner table, because there's some information in there I believe you should have. First of all, we're going to follow this outline, which I've written on the whiteboard here, 1 through 6, and we're going to refer to the items on the right side of the board, beginning with 200-2, ending with UNO. When it comes to UFOs, I don't know about you folks here in Denver, but we have people in Los Angeles who see UFOs every day at high noon. And if they were to take a polygraph test, they would pass, because God knows what they see. They have seen something, and you cannot dissuade them one way or another. In order to dissect this very delicate instrument called the study of UFOs, we've got to look at it from as many sides possible. And tonight, in the hour that's been provided, we will only be able to cover these 6 points, although there are other evaluations that are worthy of your investigation in the future. Number 1, figments of the imagination. The United States Air Force came out with a statement many years ago, and they said, in essence, that there are no such thing as UFOs. There are only people who think they see UFOs. Now, every unidentified flying object is not going to be a creation or a machine or a device from another planet. How many of you agree? Say aye. It can be easily explained in conventional ways, such as a reflection, a planet, a shooting star, high-flying Canadian geese, but not at 30,000 miles an hour. You see, there is a vast difference. Many people think they see things. Many people, according to leading psychologists and psychiatrists, UFOs to them are figments of their imagination. They have absolutely no evidence that would be applicable in any court of the land. So we must scratch out the first one and agree that there are some people, we don't know exactly how many because the number varies from year to year, who see things, and they are figments of the imagination. Many psychologists have taken it upon themselves to investigate people who see UFOs, and they have come up with some very interesting findings. First of all, they say that if an individual has a fight with his wife or his husband, and they walk out and see a UFO, that is the cause of their sighting, the upset at home. Something happened to raise their adrenaline, and something has gone kaflooey with them. Or if you lost your money on the stock market and you went out and you saw a UFO, your testimony wouldn't count either. And I don't think that's quite fair, do you? There are valid people who have seen legitimate unidentified flying objects. Many people do not know what they saw, but at the same token, there are many people who do know what they have seen. The second category, many people choose to say UFOs are nothing but secret devices of the United States government. And speaking about the government, we have various agencies within the intelligence structure of our government in whom we have had all confidence since I was a baby. But I'm grown up now. And I'm sure many of you have. There is one particular organization whose initials are CIA. They were formerly known as the OSS during the war, and with the help of Harry Truman, they became the CIA. It sounded more respectable. How many of you know what CIA means? You're right, that's the Confusion and Action Group. They have denied, emphatically denied, any interest in UFOs. They have disavowed any information regarding unidentified flying objects and or space people coming from other planets. But all of a sudden, because of the Freedom of Information Act, they have been forced to release over 1,000 pages, which we have in our office in Van Nuys, California, of declassified UFO information containing what? Names, places, events, sightings, landings, and communications that Earth people have had allegedly with people from other planets. Now, the CIA today takes a very strong stand, and they have taken on the same policy as the United States Air Force. That's another beautiful organization. Listen, I believe we have the best Air Force in the world. Don't you? Say aye. Aye. All right? But the Air Force Intelligence Department leaves much to be desired when it comes to trying to explain away UFO sightings. And it's an awful thing when factions within our own government will deny things that exist. Many years ago, Air Force regulation closed the mouths of many military people who had had valid UFO sightings. Air Force 200-2 was replaced or modified by 87-D, but it still read that it is a felony crime for any military man to speak, to relate, to inform any information regarding unidentified flying objects to unauthorized individuals such as frank strangers. And believe you me, there are military men who, as we travel from coast to coast in different parts of the world, have stepped forward with tears streaming down their faces, acknowledging the fact that we are not alone in this universe. And we'll talk more about that later. All right, so the U.S. has created flying saucers. How many of you knew that? They have invented a circular craft, unidentified object, saucer-shaped craft in collusion with the Canadian government. The Canadian firm was called AVRC, or Avrocar, and it was called the Avrocar Project. But it didn't fly high enough nor fast enough, and they had just too many accidents to make it worthwhile, so they entirely scrapped it. But to this day, the United States government is still trying to construct a saucer-shaped vehicle that will act in such a way that it will break the laws of gravity and take us to other planets the way they think we should be traveling. The third category, many say that, well, UFOs come from the Soviet Union, the USSR. Yes, they have stolen some of our blueprints and some of our ideas, and they have constructed flying saucer objects. They look like UFOs, but they do not travel as fast nor as high as the real, genuine thing. So some UFOs are figments of the imagination, some are U.S. secret devices, and some are secret devices of the USSR. Now we come to the hollow earth theory. Some people believe that some UFOs come from the interior of this particular planet Earth. And these are the same people who believe that many other planets in our system and perhaps other systems are also hollow. Well, let me tell you that there is more to this particular theory than meets the eye. According to the secret Admiral Byrd reports, he accidentally ventured into this planet Earth. I'm just so sorry that I'm all out of those books. I don't have copies of the secret Admiral Byrd diary, but if you'll take one of our sheets with our address on it and the book list and the tape list at the table in the left-hand corner, we'll be glad to accommodate you. But don't scratch this off as something that is non-existent. There is far too much evidence. As a matter of fact, being that you asked, did you know that the Bible says, God stretcheth the north over the empty place? How many of you know that's in the scriptures? 3 people. I'm glad you're here tonight. And we come along and invent the North Pole. We discover the North Pole, we discover the South Pole. In essence, in reality, there is no such landmass area as the North Pole. And don't believe the lie that the airlines give you, that you fly the polar route. You go right over the North Pole. If you did, all 4 engines would cut out and you'd be between here and there. Perhaps we'll talk about that again sometime later. Let's move into the next category. Some say that UFOs are manned by time travelers. This is a very strong possibility because people of valid credentials have come forward and given such testimony that they have been contacted in UFOs from and by individuals who are intelligent beings who are actually time travelers. But my favorite category, the category that got me in more trouble than any other category, is outer space. Now, I'm going to ask you some more questions with your permission. How many of you believe that we are the only intelligent beings in the universe? Heaven help us. Dr. Wernher von Braun, before he passed away in a press conference, was asked the question, "Sir, what is your opinion of life on this planet as opposed to life on other planets?" He said, well, man would have to be an egotistical fool to think he's the only intelligent being in the universe. He said, and I'm not through. He further said, and I'm quoting, "It is my humble thesis that the planet Earth is the insane asylum of the universe." I hope he's wrong. But if he's right, you and I are now in a position to do something about it, and I believe conferences such as this, where people are able to relate to one another, to find out what we can do to make things better, is an awful good sign. Don't you agree? Say aye. We can change the world. Don't ever let anyone tell you that we cannot. On Monday morning at 8:30, I'll be presenting a workshop that I choose to call a seminar that is called a Mastership Seminar. And a lot of that information has been given to me by outer space intelligence. And if you are tired of being poor, and you're tired of being sick, and you are tired of being pushed from pillar to post by unscrupulous individuals who do not have your best at heart, it's time for you to determine whether you're going to continue to be a sheep or you believe that it's about time that you have become a shepherd or a leader or even a master. This particular seminar is not for everyone. Please don't sign up unless you are absolutely certain that you are ready for mastership. And we have been given the tools, we have been given the keys. We presented this seminar in various parts of the nation already with tremendous success. If you are ready to become a master and you're ready to become a leader, by all means, sign up for that workshop, that seminar on Monday morning. But if you want to drift along with the rest of the crowd, don't do it, because this particular seminar is not for you. How many of you believe that we are not alone in the universe? All right? How many of you believe that if there are intelligent beings coming from other planets, they could look like us? Let's see your hands. All right, I see you're still with me. Next question. If you believe that there is, how many of you believe there is life on other worlds? You must believe that. If you believe there's life on other worlds and intelligent beings are there and they possibly look like us, how many of you believe that some of those intelligent beings could be visiting Earth right now? How many of them could be visiting Denver right now? Now, this next question, I want you to look at me. Please do not look at your neighbors. I said, don't look at your neighbors. How many of you believe that there is a strong possibility that intelligent beings could be in this room? May I please see your hands again? You believe that intelligent beings could attend a conference like this? Do you really believe that? Let me give you an example of how some people react when you speak in terms such as I'm speaking now. I was in Des Moines, Iowa not too long ago speaking at a conference. We had a beautiful banquet. Everything was said and done. The meeting was over and done with. I walked into the coffee shop because my companions were still busy talking. And I sat at the counter and I sat down and I was minding my own business. How many of you folks ever know how much business trouble you can get into minding your own business? Yeah, you do. Yeah. This waitress on the far side of the restaurant took one look at me. I knew she was looking at me, as only waitresses can do. And she said, "Ha ha ha!" I knew she was looking at me. She said, "Hey, aren't you the flying saucer preacher?" In front of everybody, in front of God, in front of everybody. What could I say? I said, yes. And she took this glass of water and came prancing toward me, and she says, "Hey, were there any green men in there tonight?" I said, "No, not one showed up." And she kept giggling and laughing. By this time, she had the attention of everybody in that restaurant. And she set that glass of water down in front of me, and all I said to her was, "There are two of us." Her lower lip began to quiver. She began to shake. Good thing she set down the water. She leaned over the counter to look at the empty seat next to me. She said, "Two of you?" I said, "Yes, my wife will be in a moment." She grabbed her heart. My heart! The manager come running over and had to send her home in a taxi cab. She wasn't good for 3 days. Be careful whom you speak to, either a waitress or your pastor. Can you imagine a lecture like this on the platform of a Southern Baptist church? I've done it. They haven't invited me back yet, but I've done it. Outer space, indeed, in fact, in truth. You know, you're sitting not too far from Colorado Springs. There is a very famous structure over at Colorado Springs, which is called the Air Force Academy. Are you familiar with the United States Air Force Academy?
Yes, I work there.
You work there? God bless you. Some years ago, I heard a rumor. I like to check on rumors, don't you? I love to check on, especially if they're pertaining to the UFOs. I heard a rumor that there was a textbook being used by my United States Air Force Academy about UFOs. In the Air Force Academy? Impossible. I went to my congressman in California, and he said, well, I had never heard of any such thing as that. I said, will you please check on it? I'm a taxpayer. He says, well, I'll do my best. I said, don't do your best. I said, I want your permission to get a copy of that book. He says, well, he kept saying wells, but I was looking for holes in the ground. He was said wells so many times. He said, well, I can't get you a copy, but I can get a copy myself and give you permission to copy it. I said, all right. But he said, you're going to have to sign an affidavit that you'll not change one item of punctuation. I said, I promise. I solemnly promise. So I didn't tell him what I was going to do with it. He didn't ask. But I've got from page 118 to page 128, page after page after page of the United States Air Force. Here, I'll give you the title. Introductory Space Sciences, Volume 2, Physics 370, United States Air Force Academy, Chapter 33, Unidentified Flying Objects. Unidentified flying objects. The government tells us these things do not exist, but here is a whole chapter in a cadet book that's teaching our airmen all about UFOs, behavioral, associated effects, after effects, operational domain, page after page after page of information, theories as to the nature of the UFO phenomena, mysticism, hoaxes, secret weapons, natural phenomena, alien visitors in the cadet book, if you please. And then they give a chapter breakdown on these lines that I've just given you. But my favorite is toward the end where they discuss alien visitors, where they go as far as quoting from the book of Dizan 64,000 years ago that UFOs landed on the planet Earth in the Air Force cadet book. And they say, hey, there's an element of human fear and hostility you've got to deal with as cadets. You've got to deal with attempts at scientific approaches. And the conclusion, listen to part of the conclusion. From available information, well, I thought they had no information. From available information, the UFO phenomena appears to be global in nature for almost 50,000 years. The majority of known witnesses have been reliable people who have seen easily explained phenomena. This entire phenomena could be psychological in nature, but it is doubtful that it is. That leaves us with the unpleasant possibility of alien visitors to our planet. Where? In the Air Force Cadet book. This book is Saucerama. We have a few of them back there. You need to get a copy of that for yourself. Now, let me talk about outer space just a little more. My research and investigation up to and including the year 1959 was pleasant. I got no static from anyone except my dad. And he was an old-time full gospel preacher. Put me through 2 Bible colleges and seminaries. And he says, what's with this Italian, he spoke with a slight accent, Italian accent. What's with this flying sausages? I said, Dad, they're not flying sausages. They're flying saucers. He said, that's what I said. But he helped finance the first edition of my book, Saucerama, before the Air Force material got into it. But he put up with me before I had a chance to study the Hebrew, the Greek, and the Aramaic, which proved conclusively in both of the Old and the New Testaments that we are not alone in the universe. Isn't that fantastic? And my research was rather normal until 1959. It actually started in 58 when an Air Force photographer by the name of Augie Roberts called me up and he said, Frank, he said, I've got some hot pictures. I said, you got some what? He said, some hot pictures. I said, of UFOs? He said, no. He said, of a person who claims to come from another planet. I said, Augie, what have you been smoking? He said, do you want to see them? I said, okay, bring them on over. And he did. And he brought me some of the pictures I'm going to show you on the screen tonight of this fellow who claimed that he was from the inside of the planet Venus. Now, you went to school. I went to school. We know that nobody lives on Venus. What's the temperature of Venus? It's warm. What is the temperature of the surface of the planet Venus? 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we know you'd get one royal hotfoot if you ever touched down there. But this was one of the pictures that Augie Roberts gave me, that this fella claims is from the inside of the planet Venus. I said, Augie, I don't know about you. He said, do you want to hear the story or don't you? I said, where were the pictures taken? He said, in the backyard of Mr. Howard Menger. Anyone ever hear of Howard Menger? A very fine gentleman. We had the pleasure of meeting him in Florida just a few months ago. And Howard Menger put on this lawn lecture, the backyard lecture, and this gentleman and some other people with him gave conclusive evidence to the photographer that he was certainly not of this world. I said, Augie, what else? He said, well, when he looked at me, I got the distinct impression that he could look straight through me. I said, my father does that to me now. He said, shut up and listen. Did you ever meet people that look straight through you? How many of you look straight through people? Never mind. Anyhow, I said, all right, tell me more. He said, the fella has no fingerprints on either hand. Ah, that caught my attention because as a former special investigator, they taught us the principles of the science of fingerprinting, the whirl, the loop, whatever. I said, all right, I will take these pictures and I will tell my audiences when I put these pictures on display what you told me. Is that fair? He said, okay. All right, the D-Day came for me when I met my Waterloo, when the tide of my research completely took a 180, because up to that point I was teaching only that there is a strong possibility that people come from other worlds, but not that they're here now. Because if they were intelligent, what would they come to this planet for? And then it came, December 1959, I was invited by Dr. John Mears to address his church in Washington, D.C., and sure enough, he said, tonight I want you to speak on UFOs in the Bible. I said, okay, I'm ready. I had no slides at that time. I had all pictures. So I mounted the pictures on the platform, and during the question and answer session, more people asked questions about the pictures that I had the least information on this man supposedly from Venus, and I could only tell them what Augie told me. And then toward the end of the meeting, I was autographing the first edition of my Saucerama book, and a lady came to the platform. And they teach you in seminary, you've got to be nice to the ladies. That's right. You better say that's right. She's sitting too close to you. And she came to the platform. She said, Dr. Strangers? Yes. And I'm busy autographing books. I'd like to see you alone. I said, oh my God. I said, can you wait just a little while? No, I've got to see you right now. I said, just a few more. I'm busy here. And she said, Dr. Stranges, I must see you now. And she was adamant. Did you ever meet people like that? Of course you have, especially in Denver. I finally took one look at her as though to say, please, excuse me for about 5 minutes. And she reached into her purse. And she withdrew her hand from that purse. And she had her identification packet. On one side, her identification read, United States Government, Pentagon Building, Office so-and-so, Department so-and-so. On the other side, her photograph with a number beneath it. I became suddenly converted. I said, yes, ma'am, I'll see you right now. Pastor, let me borrow the key to your office. This lady wants to talk to me. He gave me the key. And as we passed the board of pictures on the platform, she pointed to the picture of this gentleman and she said, how would you like to meet him personally? Well, shut my mouth, I thought. What would you say? Of course. I said, yes. She says, come on. We went into the office. She fired 2 questions at me. Can you, as a former special investigator, still follow orders? I said, yes, ma'am. Can you, as a former special investigator, still follow orders without deviation? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, tomorrow morning, you meet me downstairs in front of your hotel at 8 o'clock sharp, and I will take you to where he is. Where is he? At the Pentagon. I thought, oh, my God. Okay, I'll meet you tomorrow morning. I got up at 7 o'clock, went down to that cold December sidewalk in Washington. You know how cold it can get. Paced up and down until her car came. Her car pulled up. She looked at me, went like that. I went like that, got in the car. God bless you. How are you? Did you sleep well? I said, no. Let's go. Off we went. Those of you who are familiar with Pentagon traffic, you know that traffic normally flows to the right into the main parking lots, A, B, C, and D. She turns to the left, parks against the fence. The guard looks at her and went like that. She went like that. He looked at me, went like that. What else am I going to do? Got out of the car, got in line, and this is where the fun began. This is why the FBI picked me up off of an airplane when I finally went to New York a few days later. Everybody's standing in line, some in uniform, some in plain clothes. Everybody has a badge. Everybody's got some form of ID, either on their outer jacket or their inner shirt or on their belt buckle. I have nothing. She reaches in her purse and takes out her picture, puts it on her jacket, puts her coat over the jacket, and she starts walking. We're in line, and that guard standing there is growing by the minute. He has a clipboard. What he's writing, I don't know. I'll tell you the same thing I told the FBI. I don't know. I asked this lady, Nancy, I said, Nancy, do you have any kind of ID for me? She said, just do what I do, and please get back in line. I said, all right, what are you going to do? She said, oh, do what I do. By that time, she was third in line, and then second in line, and then first in line. What she did was this. She opened her coat and walked on by. That put me first in line. What did I do? Opened my cotton picking coat and walked right on by. I caught up with Nancy. She said, that was fine. She said, we have one more. I said, one more what? One more security guard. I said, once, maybe twice. I'm not too sure. I'm going home. It happened a second time. She started walking again, got in line. I got in line. I felt so humble before God. I prayed prayers I'd forgotten since childhood. This second security guard, he was bigger than the first one. And when I got up to him, she went in first and she opened her jacket. I opened my jacket, walked on by. He never challenged me. The FBI people in New York said, did you turn around to look at it? I said, you crazy? All right, quickly we got in. She brought me to a door. She said, he is in there. No number on the door, no name. I had my hand on the door handle. My heart began to race. I said, oh my God, if this is true, what an experience this is going to be. Major Keyhole will never talk to me again. I just know he won't. I had my hand on the door. She had gone already. And the thought struck me, how do I get out of here? And I turned and caught up with her. She said, yes. How do I get out of here? She said, do the same thing as when you came in, you know. Oh God, that makes 2 going in and 2 coming out. All right, talk to you later. See you in church tonight, she says. I said, I hope so. This put me back at the door. I opened the door slowly, poked my head in there, looked around. I saw 2 men at flat-top desks. They were Air Force officers, dead in front of me. To the right-hand corner, an Army sergeant. He was busy, an Air Force sergeant. He was busy typing. I shut the door hard, made a noise. I cleared my throat, scruffled my feet. They still paid no attention to me. This does not normally happen in the government office. Then I tried it again. They paid no attention to me. And then all of a sudden there was a movement to my right, and I wheeled around, and here, who comes toward me but this fellow whose picture I've been carrying with me to universities and colleges and churches and UFO clubs all over America. With his hand outstretched, he says, "Hello, Frank. How are you? Do you know, you talk about goosebumps? I had goosebumps on top of my goosebumps." He put me so at ease. 6 foot tall, soft wavy brown hair, brown eyes, a dark complexion like mine, friendly as all get out. And we started to speak. I said, "Of course you have a name?" He said, "Yes, my name is Valiant." He said, "You have a last name like I do?" He said, "Yes, Thor, Thor." The first thing that jumped into my mind was Buck Rogers' comic book. I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "I'm from the planet your Bible calls the morning and the evening star." What planet is that? Venus. I said, "Venus." He said, "Yes, that's right." "How long have you been here?" He said, "On the morning of March 16th, 57, I landed in Alexandria, Virginia, in full view of a bunch of state troopers and highway patrol people. They brought me to the White House, and they exchanged me to some Secret Service men and FBI. Everybody got in the act, and they presented me to the president, who was Dwight Eisenhower at the time. And he said, "I also had the pleasure of meeting your vice president," who? Richard Nixon. They were all there. To make a long story short, I questioned him for 30 minutes, and he gave me satisfactory answers for 30 minutes. As a clergyman, I asked him religious questions. I said, "Do you have a Bible as we do where you come from?" You know what he said? He said, "Frank, why would we need a book when we're still walking hand in unbroken fellowship with the Creator?" By that time, I felt like I was going to cry. And I asked him, as a clergyman, "What do you think of Jesus the Christ?" And he recited such truths about Jesus the Christ that are not even found in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. He spoke to me as though he knew him, which I found out later. He knew him personally. He still had unbroken fellowship with the Creator. I said, "How long will you be here?" He said, "I'll be here until March 16th, 1960, when I will leave Alexandria in the same manner that I came. I'll be gone for 1 year, but after that period of time, I'll see you again." I said, "That's wonderful." He told me things about my childhood that when I got back to New York, I had to ask my parents and my grandparents these questions, and they verified things that I never knew about myself before. He told me things about the future that I would be meeting in California. He gave me some excellent advice, too. And you know, the shame of it is, when experts give us advice, we better heed their advice. Can you say amen to that? Amen. And far too few people heed advice of people who know what they're talking about. The 30 minutes was up. I said, "Do you have a space suit?" As I was asking him the question, he walked to the wooden closet. These other men in the room never raised their eyeballs to look at me once. He went to the closet and produced a beautiful space outfit, which is fully described in this book, My Friend from Beyond Earth, along with many occasions where he saved my life. And I took it from the hanger, a wooden hanger. It looked heavy. It looked metallic, clear down to the boots, all one-piece fabric. And I picked it up and I went like that. It was so light. It weighed literally ounces. He said, "This is completely indestructible." He said, "Your people have tried And if you remember way back in the early days of 1959, they were just experimenting with a laser. But he said they fired the laser at this, it didn't even warm the surface. They gave it the acid test, the acid rolled off on the floor and burned a hole in the floor. He said they fired high velocity shots, rifle shots at the garment, never phased it one bit. When I told the story on the Art Link letter show some months later, the calls I got from the garment industry in New York, you wouldn't believe. I left that place. I did the routine, got out this way, showing, I don't know what they saw. I don't know what they saw. I don't know what they wrote on the tablet. I don't care. All I knew was I was on the inside looking out and I had to get out, which I did. I went back to the hotel, finished my meeting at the church. Monday morning, the pastor and his assistants came to drive me to the airport. A knock came at the door. Two big, strong, handsome, well-dressed people standing there. Two beautiful-looking men pulled out their ID, Air Force Intelligence. They said, "Are you Frank Strange?" I said, "Strangers. Unusual, but not strange." I'm quoting now. "If you value your reputation, you'll not recite one word of what happened to you at the Pentagon Thursday morning." I said, "What happened to me?" One of the officers said, "You know damn well what happened." Ladies and gentlemen, I say this before the Creator. I was not going to tell my wife, I wasn't going to tell my parents, I was going to tell no one about this experience. But being that they told me to keep my mouth shut, I wrote the book. As it stands now, I was driving my car in Beverly Hills on my way to my attorney's office 1 year later to the day. From out of the back seat of my car, "Hello, Frank, how are you?" I nearly died. How, I know now how, did he get into the back of my car going 30 miles an hour in Beverly Hills? I don't know. I said, "Would you like to come in the back? Let me pull the car over so you can get into the back seat, into the front seat." He said, "Which is it, front or back?" I said, "The front seat." And I stopped the car. He got in the front seat, shook my hand, gave me a bear hug. My friends, at the risk of sounding ridiculous, you haven't really had any experiences at all unless and until you have had a man from another world, an angel, an angelic being, wrap his arms around you and tell you that he loves you. Believe you me, I've told this from churches from coast to coast of various denominations, and people relate to it immediately. I believe the day is coming, very shortly, that many people sitting in this room will have the privilege of looking face to face, right into the clear eyes of people from other planets. You will first feel the love of God in their handshake. In their presence, you will feel marvelous things. I'll tell you more about this during our seminar on Monday morning because our time is drawing to a close. Val has been with me in Europe and in many other places. Let me give you just one quick example. In San Diego, he came to one of my meetings. He was sitting right about with this gentleman with the glasses. Would you raise your hand, please, you with the glasses? Right, raise your hand, yes. Just where he was sitting back there. Mrs. Day, who was in charge of the lecture hall, said, oh. I said, what? Because she had seen his picture in my books. She said, "He's here." I said, "Yes, I see him." She said, "Do you mind if you don't speak tonight and we call him up instead?" I said, "Help yourself." And he sat there with his arms folded. "Not yet. It is not time." And she will not take no for an answer. So she sends these beautiful white-gloved usherettes, two from the back and two from the front, to converge on his seat and escort him to the platform. By the time these dainty four ladies got to the place where he was sitting, what happened? Dematerialized. The men sitting around him fainted and fell on the floor. Men. But that's not the end of the story. There was a woman sitting in that audience 1 month later, in that same, practically the same crowd, listening to my lecture, her husband was making all kinds of grunts and sounds like some husbands do when they don't like something that's going on. And you could clearly hear, what's this crap? Well, what's this garbage? What did you bring me here for? She said, why don't you shut your big fat mouth? And you could hear all this. And this went on and on and on. And she finally belted him one because she went, oh! And he got up, slammed the door, and you can hear his car in the parking lot. Boom! And he went on home. Well, after the meeting, she went on home. And the way I got the story several days later, they didn't talk to each other. She made him sleep downstairs, as some wives do. Not in Denver. The following morning, he had to cook his own breakfast. He came downstairs, cooked his own breakfast, got ready to leave for work, said goodbye to his wife. She never said a word. He walked out to the car, and as was his custom, he was adjusting the rearview mirror. And what or whom do you suppose he saw in the rearview mirror? This spaceman, whose name is Commander Valiant Thor, across the street, sending him a mental message, do not back up your car. He told us, he said, I thought I was losing my mind. So I turned around and I saw him and I got his mental message again, do not back up the car. He said, then I knew I was losing my mind. So he, instead of turning the ignition, he got out of the car, walked around of the car, and he found the little cardboard box nudged up against the left rear wheel. And there was something moving in that box. And he thought, this is strange. And he got down on all fours and he pulled that carton from out of the car, from the wheel of the car, opened the lid on the carton. What do you suppose was in that carton? His son. His little baby boy. Well, he was so upset that he took that little kid out of the box and he spanked the little boy. And Mama heard the baby crying and she come running down. What happened? What happened? And he told her what happened and she spanked the kid too. So between the spankings, the husband suddenly realized who gave the warning. And he turned around, looked across the street, no one there. Ran out into the middle of the street, to the left and to the right, no one there. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot tell this man today that Valiant Thor does not exist. In a meeting not too long ago in Southern California, we had an audience similar to this. I talked about Commander Valiant Thor, and during the intermission, a gentleman came forward, graying at the temples, came forward with his wife, pulled out his ID, he showed it to me, United States Air Force Intelligence, retired. He said, I met your friend. I met your friend at the Pentagon in 1960 before he left. I said, how? What happened? He said, I was grounded because I had stomach ulcers. They wouldn't allow me to fly anymore. I was scheduled for an operation. And he said, your friend passed me in the hallway and then stopped. He was with several other officers, but they stopped also, and he told them, please wait. And he turned around and came back to me. He called me by my first name, and he put his right hand on my stomach, and he looked up without saying a word. He said, I felt a warm sensation from the top of my head to the soles of my feet. And he said, when I went to the doctor the following day, the doctor thought he was out of his mind. He said, the x-rays show you had all kinds of illnesses and sicknesses in the pit of your stomach. You had ulcers. He said, would you please quit griping and take some more x-rays? Which he did. And the doctor said, this is impossible. There must have been something wrong with the equipment. Oh, that's a cop-out. Ladies and gentlemen, when you meet people from other planets, your life is going to change. Your habits are going to change. I've got news for you. Some of your friends are going to say goodbye to you too. But don't despair. The best is yet to come. We are living on the threshold of some of the greatest revelations to hit the human family. Commander Valiant Thor wrote this book called Outwitting Tomorrow, which has gone throughout the entire world. If you're interested in some of his writings and some of his philosophies, which have to do with both the pyramids and the 7 things that are about to take place on the face of this earth before the end comes toward the year 2005. All these things are available on that back table. And finally, my newest book, UFO Conspiracy. If you'd like a copy of that, they're also available on that back table. And if any of you are interested in prophecy and predictions from the year 1978 to the year 2000, we have a few of these prophecy tapes also on that back table. Now, before I say goodnight to you, I would like to show you just a few slides that I brought with me for your edification. Thank you very much. You're a fantastic audience. All right, what you're looking at now is a little red dot. Now, these are the famous Pleiades pictures. There's the UFO. These pictures are very controversial, as some of you know. But in my recent contacts with some friends in Japan, they are in communication with the laboratory in Tokyo that have adjudged these pictures as absolutely flawless. So let people argue back and forth whether they're true or false. I want you to determine, make up your own opinion tonight. All right, next please.
Where is that?
Switzerland. All these were taken in Switzerland. Another UFO taken in Switzerland several years ago. This UFO has a corrugated edge, which makes it far different from those that have been photographed that appear to be smooth, all right?
What's that on top?
On top of that UFO was like a dome. Very seldom do you see UFOs photographed in formation or in groups, such as this gentleman was able to capture in Switzerland several years ago. Notice, because you've got a frame of reference, trees and ground and a house or a church, they were able to determine the altitude and the density of some of these craft. Next. Again, very seldom are UFOs photographed in this type of configuration where there are 2 or more in the same frame. Notice the 2 different kinds of UFOs. While we're speaking of various kinds of UFOs, if you ever see a beehive-shaped UFO, run for your life, because those are the ones that are suspected as kidnapping and abducting people in the United States and other parts of the world against their will. They say that many of these come from the inner regions of this planet, but that's another subject. Next, please. Notice this strange object, also photographed in Switzerland. Something similar to this was seen in New Mexico some years ago, photographed by Paul Villa. At that time, they believed that these ball-shaped affairs broke loose from the mother craft into 4 different directions, and they were acting as monitors.
Is that to the rest?
No, this is not considered the beehive. All right, next. Take a look at the scope of this particular craft. Also photographed in Switzerland by Billy Myers. This is one of his trucks in Switzerland. Next. Here it is again. Huge craft. It may interest you to know that even according to Air Force records, UFOs have been seen and photographed in the skies of every nation under the sun, and they have taken on every shape and form and color available. Next. Here we have a group of people in the backyard of Howard Menger. This is the gentleman that I'm referring to with the papers in his hand. Commander Valiant Thor, and we found out later this is his brother Don, who we've met, and we meet on a regular basis. And this young lady Jill, also from the ship, which is now at Lake Mead, not too far from Las Vegas, Nevada. Next. Here's a picture of Commander Val as he looked when the pictures were given to me, and Don, the way he looked then, and Jill, and they looked exactly the same today. Next. Commander Valiant Thor. This is what he looks like today, and this is what he looked like the first time I met him. His photographs are in some of the books in the back if you'd like to avail yourself, And again, I want to thank you for listening to me tonight, and God bless you all, and we'll see you at the seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Frank.